Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's the show about the show. Keep the applause coming. Keep the applause coming. I'll put some applause in there. They'll think it's an actual live audience. They won't know the difference.
If we just say there's applause, they'll know, or if we put it in post.
Yeah, if we put it in post, I think that like even how on the shows like everyone's like, oh, it's funny because there's people laughing, or like people really like the show because they're clapping along to it. Apparently that logic should just work for our show too. I can't imagine why it wouldn't,
Yeah. We could add an applause after.
Yeah, maybe some laughs too, like because of the irony of laugh tracks. Of course it's funny because it's funny, and then like they laugh because I just said that. It's like the irony.
The irony.
That's the laugh.
So does this look like I'm the one laughing, or does this sound like a laugh track?
Actually, that's not bad. That's not bad. Actually, it's better for me then we don't have to edit in any laugh tracks. We can just have that. It's not a very convincing laugh, but I think like it gets the point across. They know they're supposed to be laughing because just because they got to have like I don't know who coined like the laugh track. It's just funny the thought of like someone's like, that's not very funny. I need you to add in like a laugh track to make that actually stand out in the show. Like, I wonder how it came about. I wonder if like there was like some producers, they were sitting down, they were watching this new show that was going to air, and they're like, this is not funny. We've got to get some laugh tracks in the background, or else this is just not going to hit.
Do you really think that's what they're doing? You really think that they don't think it's funny enough? Or what do you think?
No. I mean, I'm mainly just making a joke, like kind of. I don't know how laugh tracks came about, but I can imagine a bunch of people sitting in a studio, looking at the back at the show and thinking to themselves, Jim, you got to get somebody laughing in here because I'm not laughing.
Yeah. I think definitely laughter is contagious. And if they want more laughs, then they can do that. Yeah, but it also, it's just to manipulate the audience to think it's more funny. But what isn't manipulating the audience? From a director's perspective, if you're shooting shots from a certain angle to make someone look larger or smaller, or specific casting choices, whether they know the person, whether they don't know who the person is, Brad Pitt or some random, Joe Blow actor. It's all a manipulation, and that's just like icing on the cake, so to speak.
Yeah, I don't think it's like a bad thing. You know what I mean? Some shows might not even stand as well without it. No, I don't know. I just wonder how it came about, like who figured out that like some shows kind of needed that little like boost, you know what I mean? Like some sitcoms, like it might even like sound weird without the laugh track. Like, have you ever I can't remember what show it was, but someone posted like just scenes without the laugh tracks, and it's really weird. It's like really awkward. And it's probably because we've heard it with the laugh track so many times. It just becomes weird when you listen to it with just dead silence.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when like there's nobody laughing at some of the jokes. It's like, okay, like I see why they put that in there. Like it is something was needed along the way to make that style work,
Yeah. Well, yeah, those shows from the 90s were written for a laugh track. And kind of what you were saying is that it was like at the end, they're like, oh shit, this isn't funny enough. We need to add the laugh track. But what I really think is in the script, there was like pauses for laughs. And so it's especially weird when you're saying, oh, when they take it out, because the way the script was written, like in real life, people don't pause and then wait for somebody that's not there to laugh. They're waiting for the audience to laugh, AKA the other people that they're with. But in this case, it's like they're opening the door to the audience in the script. And a lot of shows now, not in the 90s, it's all hyper realistic, and they're not pausing for laughs because all of the comedy is ironic, or the comedy is subtle, or it's built in. There's not a time for a pause.
Yeah, yeah. No, I definitely don't think they did that either. I find it like I kind of wish that's what happened, because it would be funny if like the way that they discovered the laugh track is they were like, shit, we made this show. Or even better, it was just such an awkward show where like the actors were constantly like pausing to remember their lines, and they were like, shit, this looks completely awful. We have to do something about this. It was just created out of necessity, but I'm sure it was, again, probably somebody who just who thought, what if we actually had a live audience just laughing, and we don't want to get a live audience for every single shooting, so we'll just throw a laugh track in there, rather than
I think it was both. Like, what I know about Seinfeld for sure was each week they would write the next week stuff, and during that week then they would film the stuff, and then near the end of the week they would perform the show for a live studio audience. It's like a multicam show, right? So everybody is shot from a bunch of different angles, and they use all of the camera angles. And so in that format, you can actually have a live audience there, and they would record the laughs from the live studio audience and put that into the show. Then later on, people realized we don't have to pay for this shit in the studio and all this other stuff. We can add the laughs in later on. But some shows with larger production, or who wanted to get laughs where laughs actually would be appropriate, they would do it with the audience there.
Yeah, they still do that today. Sometimes they do still do the live studio audience. But it's crazy because a lot of shows, have you heard of this? They use the same exact laugh track that they used like way back. So like, I can't remember what it is, but I think the whole audience is actually dead on one of them. I can't
Big
remember.
Bang Theory. That's what I heard. Big Bang Theory.
Yeah, maybe that's the show that I'm thinking of, because they use a really old laugh track, and it's just so weird to think that everyone's dead who's laughing on that track. It's a little bit eerie.
Everyone's dead, yeah. Well, that's the reality.
Yeah, yeah.
So who's this guy, Jumbo J Jambalaya?
I have no idea, quite frankly. It just kind of came to me in the moment. I was kind of feeling the jambalaya, and I definitely spelled jambalaya wrong. I don't know how you spell that. But in the moment, I was just like, I typed in Jumbo J, and I was like, that's just not enough. It's got to have jambalaya in there just to really spice it up,
Hey, well, you spelled it good enough for me to know how to pronounce it. So
good enough. How'd you think of Jesus Charlie?
Jesus Charlie, it's like some French thing. I actually don't know what it means. It was something, a few years ago. There was like, I think there's some fucked up atrocities happening in France, and so they made shirts out of it.
Oh, damn.
I don't know.
That's pretty. What atrocities were happening in let's see. Oh, was that like World War II or something like that? Was that like
No, it was much more recent, like 2018 or something.
Oh, okay, that's weird. Damn.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Imagine actually being named after like an atrocity. That would be pretty awful, going through life. Even if it's like similar to somebody who's like a bad person. Like I don't think anyone's gonna be like naming I think someone already made a joke about this. Actually, there's already a comedian who made a joke about if you named your son like Hitler, like no one's gonna do that,
Yeah, well, someone may someday. But okay, so Jesus Charlie, I always thought it was like Jesus Charlie, like some fucked up shit happened to Charlie, but what it really means is I am Charlie in French. Jesus means I am. And there's this French art director, Joachim Ronson. He came up with the term, and then it was adopted later on by supporters of freedom of speech and freedom of press. After a January 7th shooting in 2015, which 12 people were killed at the offices of the French satirical weekly newspaper Charlie Hebdo, Hebdo. There was, supporters of free speech were shot, basically. So
Damn.
there you go. So never forget.
Yeah, never forget. God damn, dude. We're all Charlie then.
Yeah, I am Charlie.
And I guess I'm Jumbo J Jambalaya. Doesn't really have much meaning to it more than that, you know. Got a food in there. So you don't, this is interesting. So you don't you don't have like coffee in the morning, right? Because I always remember you were never a coffee guy, but you are you like do you do tea in the morning, or are you just you're getting up and you're just going at it with no caffeine? What's your strategy?
My strategy is sleep enough, drink water.
That's a better
Yeah,
strategy.
The answer is no caffeine.
No caffeine. Damn.
But I was looking this up actually. Can you make me the host?
Yeah. Let's see here. I don't know if it's gonna stop the recording. I hope not.
It shouldn't.
Let's see here. How do I make you the host?
Go to participants and then go to Jay Sweet Charlie, and then it'll say make host.
Ah, there we go. Yep.
Okay.
You are the host.
Okay, congratulations. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen.
All right.
Google Chrome. Okay, can you see this?
Yeah, I can see this.
The website. So there's this one on here that's I did a 23andMe. Basically, you spit in the thing and then they tell you about your genes. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. Okay, I've heard of this.
Lifestyle dashboard. So they're telling you stuff about your DNA and tendencies you have, and it also shows some relative stuff, blood and biomarkers. But it was saying something about caffeine on here, like I have a low tolerance for caffeine, or I might be someone that doesn't drink caffeine. Like they could kind of predict that. This will have stuff: lactose intolerance, not likely to be lactose intolerant, but I think I am lactose intolerant. But it may not be a genetic thing. It may just be lifestyle, or just what my body has become accustomed to.
Yeah, it's interesting because you used to be a big ice cream guy, if I remember correctly, right?
Yeah, ice cream, grilled cheese, all that. Sweet versus salty, the brain and taste preference. There's no taste map of your tongue. Genetics may influence how your brain judges and responds to tastes. Combination of your genetics, other factor make you likely to prefer salty or savory snacks. I don't know about this. I love fries. Here's a little picture of ice cream here. Maybe that's what it's saying. But I love candy too. I got a shitload of cavities. Probably from candy, probably from some other genetic stuff.
I definitely
it'll tell you
prefer
about
salty snacks too. I think I'm more of a savory guy. I do like sweet stuff, but I'm always more down for a savory snack, I think.
Yeah. Well, there is a correlation, and I'll stop sharing here. I didn't find the caffeine thing, but there's a correlation between having low blood pressure, which it runs in our family, and having a higher need to consume salt to like feel good. So I'm curious whether or not it would be something genetic like this, right? Where it's saying your genes would predispose you to this for specific markers about taste, if they're looking at taste genetics, versus like if you have low blood pressure, when you eat salty foods, your blood pressure raises to a normal amount and you feel better. So there also could be this feedback mechanism where you're eating salt and feeling better. And that has nothing to do with like the specific genetics of taste that maybe they're testing.
Interesting. Yeah, because I am a prolific snacker. I do like to snack, and when I do snack, like if I can.
Hold on, can you try that again? Just do the same cadence, but just really put a big emphasis on I'm a big snacker.
Okay. I'll use the same terminology too. Here we go.
Okay.
I do consider myself to be a prolific snacker. Nice laugh track. Go ahead. Okay. But yeah, no, I'm always going for those salty snacks. I control my cravings. I try to. But I'm a fan of the chips. Talking about like you make it like some biscuits or something, like you put some like butter on it or something like that. I don't know. I like savory stuff, I think, more than sweet stuff. Definitely.
Have you ever got your blood pressure checked before?
I have. Yeah. Whenever I go in for my checkup, they always check
You know what
it.
they said? Do you know what they say to you?
They've never said anything bad. It's always been just apparently average, normal. I think one time it was like a little bit higher than usual, but it wasn't like a danger rate. It was like I think school was stressing me out. It was like I got my blood taken or blood pressure taken when it was close to like my midterms. So I think I was like at the time like kind of like high pressure, kind of stress.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe you do trend towards having higher blood pressure. I don't know. But mine is like categorically low, and all the people in my immediate family is fairly low. Normal is like 120/90 or something. If your first number starts to go below about 90, then it's like considered clinically low. But mine's usually around 100. But what that really means is, there's a huge correlation, like salt in ancient times used to be a currency because of its ability of what it does to our bodies. Every single system in our body uses sodium pumps, and all the nerves in our body, in order to fire an action potential, they have to have sodium present. And so if you don't have enough of that, all of the connections in your brain fire slower, and they don't have as strong of impulses because they don't have enough sodium. So a lot of this shit, when they took people off of sugar, people went over to the salty foods, right? Because they thought sugar was going to fucking kill you. And, refined sugar isn't good. But the reason a lot of people have high blood pressure is because they're overdoing salt. But for somebody who does, like you're saying, check your impulses, some people actually need to increase their salt significantly, even though like most people are saying, salt is causing high blood pressure. So it's a controversial topic. It's a controversial topic though.
Yeah. I mean, I think always like you kind of have to like, there's no diet is going to specifically work for everybody. That's I think a mistake that sometimes people like seem to think. They're like, oh, like this person did this, so it must work for me too. But everyone has different bodies, so you got to do what's right for you. Everyone's got different health needs, different dietary restrictions, stuff that they should eat more of, less of.
Yeah, should we start the Not Me Too movement?
The Not Me Too. Oh, you mean like the individual like Just me.
Just me. Yeah. I mean, it's just a play on words, but um yeah, you're right. It is all about individuals, and it's important to have education about how the body works to maybe guide you in the right direction to find what might be useful for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Science.
Yeah, science. We still got a long way to go. You know, they don't know everything yet. It's a long road of discovery.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that at any point in history and be correct.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's one.
So is
That's
that, so
it's
is
one
that
of
even
those
saying
things.
something significant if you could just say that at any time and be correct?
I mean, that's why it's kind of like just the perfect, like, you know, just quote to drop, because you know, like, no one's gonna be like, no, actually, you're wrong. Like, we've stopped it. There's no more science to explore. I mean, maybe some people would, but
But is that the goal, to drop something that people can't refute?
I mean, I guess it can almost even be maybe like a something where, like, in a time where, like, people sometimes are like anti-science in some capacities. Maybe it's not the worst thing to drop, but at the same time, you know, yeah, it's pretty, like, well understood by most people. I'll say that much.
Yeah, that there's a lot to go.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm reading this book um called It's Just a Theory, or it's called something like that. It's about evolution, and like there's these court cases in Kansas from about 20 years ago, and they're ruling on whether or not uh to put this sticker in these books that are teaching evolution. um the sticker would say something like, you know, this is just a theory, basically, and that would just be like at the beginning of the book, because there's all this stuff about religious creationism and all this. um and anyway, I'm not really bringing that up to talk about the evolution part, which I do find interesting and would talk about it, but what it's really talking about is the uh what science really is, and what scientists really are setting out to do, and the way the guy paints the picture. And I'm kind of questioning this, but he's talking about how the pure scientists, what they really want to be is they want to be rebels. They want to change the structure of the entire system. And so, like, the purest scientists who are doing groundbreaking research, all the people from the past who are living on, you know, limited information, but there's like the structure built it on the limited information. These rebels will be ostracized. You know, like there's a saying like, whoever is forging the path ahead or being um a pioneer like dies with a bunch of arrows in their back. But it's like, it's the whole idea of just doing good science is fundamentally rebellious and dangerous.
That can be proven. I mean, in the past, think about what happened to many of the you know, great, you know, scientists and people who like the guy who tried to prove that the earth wasn't at the center of the universe. What is the guy's name?
Was it Galileo?
Yeah, Galileo. Yeah. The church completely fucked up his whole life because they didn't want to, you know, admit that the earth wasn't at the center of the universe. And so a lot of times some of these guys who they produce a theory, people, you know, they get pissed. People like living in what they're used to knowing. And then when it's proven right, then those people are looked at differently in the future, you know. So I think history proves that to be true quite a bit, you know. Same thing with like people thinking the world was flat. No one wanted to believe that it was round, and all of a sudden, you know, the church again did not want to make that concession until eventually there was a point where they realized they were wrong because of, you know, evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And then it can go both ways, because then it's crazy now that we have people who think that the earth is flat. And have you heard of this one guy? He he basically like he himself was using the scientific process. He tried to like conduct an experiment on something that's already been true. He made an air balloon. He flew up into the air and he
With his
saw
own body.
yeah. And he made it like I can't remember, somebody documented him doing this. He goes up there, he looks at the earth and he sees the curvature like we all do when we fly in an airplane. And he said, no, I've done something wrong. I must have done something wrong. He goes back down. He still doesn't believe it, even though he saw with his own eyes. It's crazy to me that like something that's already been proven, he's just like, nope, no. Like you could fly him up in a spaceship and have him orbit the earth and he'd be like, I don't know, something's just not right about this. Like, I don't know, like you can't, I don't even know how you could communicate with somebody who's like that, just that out there, who's just like, nope, I can't believe anything that I see.
Wouldn't you say the same thing to Galileo in your time if you were a part of the church?
See,
like you're gonna say that somebody is crazy until you're like, oh shit, it might have just been an optical illusion, or everything we see isn't really a representation of what there is, and so in this specific case, I think it's unlikely, right, that he was doing good science. But I'm just saying these pioneers are going to be crazy, man, and we're not going to get it always.
See, here's the thing. I think there's a limit. There's got to be a limit put down, or else we won't believe anything that's proven to be true. Like I think that like there's some stuff that just like is so, because see what they're doing is they're using the past and the people who actually like really like went through troubles and strife and really like had to go against what was already like known, and then they're trying to like cosplay as that. They're trying to be like, no, well, I'm kind of like him. I'm kind of like him. I'm a big idea man, and I'm pushing against the fold. And it's like like you're not doing that, and you're just cosplaying as them. You know what I mean? Like this is somebody who's trying to be that because he sees those people in the past who have fought against even like culturally, or like you look at any sort of struggle in the past to change things from how they currently are. And I think people look at that and they say, I want to be like them, but I don't know how to do that today because they might not even have like necessarily any values or any like things that they want to prove. So they just are like, I'm just going to reverse. I'm just going to go in reverse and take us back to the Stone Age. And I'm going to pretend like I'm the I'm the guy who's pushing against the fake reality. I think like there's a problem with that. It's kind of, and some just grift. They're just grifters. Some of them they know it's false, but they want to have
so
this.
What you're saying is, or at least I'm going to say this to you and you tell me if it's correct or not. But what you're saying is you'd rather err on the side of caution when being meeting will end in 10 minutes.
I saw that too. Yeah.
You're saying that you're erring on the side of caution when there's this revolutionary idea. Is there somebody who is pushing against? You're going to err on the side of caution and say, well, they're probably wrong, but later on, if the evidence is strong enough, then I will go along with those people. But because you see all these people cosplaying, pretending, and a lot of these scientists think they're doing legitimate work, but they just don't have enough information. So I think that's what you're saying, and I'm saying, yeah. But like from that guy's point of view, if he thinks he's doing good science, let him fucking do it.
Okay, there's a limit.
Good science, then let him do it.
I'm happy that guy's doing scientific experiments, and it's almost like he thinks he's discovered the scientific process. It's like, congratulations. I wish that maybe he would have been taught that in school, because he just discovered a format that already exists. It's like they've been doing that for forever now. Like, but congratulations. Like, I would say, great. I'm happy you built an air balloon and flew up there. That's cool. As long as those people don't try to like disrupt like science that's actually like progressing us into the modern, like even more of a modern era. Because I think there's a threat where like when the population gets uneducated enough and we start retesting things, that have already been concretely proven, and all of a sudden you have these people who just like, no, it's flat, no, it's flat, and it's clearly not flat, but they just believe that. And some of them, like that guy is a very specific example. He did a scientific experiment. He still didn't believe it, even when he saw with his own eyes, whatever. He can keep testing it, I suppose. But there's people who just believe it, and they look on the internet and they get fed this misinformation. And I think there's a huge danger going forward that if we have a largely misinformed public, that's going to be a huge problem, because some of them don't even know what a scientific process is. And if they want to test things that have already been tested, I mean, go ahead and do it. But these people oftentimes don't have even open minds. They're not even considering that, like, okay, the world is round. They're set in this example where they're like, they want to be right so bad, and they want the current way things are to be wrong so bad that they're pressing into this idea that there's no evidence for, there's no proof for, they can't prove it.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
they want to believe so badly.
When it comes down to it, there is ultimately no proof of anything. We have developed a scientific process. We have given it merit in our society, and these people are abusing it, or they're using only a portion of its abilities or power. Talking of science, they're only using a portion of it, or they're just doing it completely backwards, like you're saying. Ultimately, I don't care about this specific issue that much, because the implications, I don't see that it matters either way. If it's round, if it's flat, I don't care. We're here. How do we create world peace? Who gives a shit about this? Like, if we can send rocket ships up into space, if we want to go to a different planet, if that's still possible, why does this kind of stuff even matter?
I think it really
excited about it.
Depends if, like, these people, again, sometimes they form like political factions. I mean, that's true with the flat earthers. Unfortunately, they oftentimes associate themselves with certain political extremes. Oftentimes, you know, I don't want to make it like the show too political or anything, but like sometimes it can be dangerous, the misinformation. And if these people are trying to exert their power, and then they do it in a way that is regressive and actually doesn't help progress humanity in any sort of fashion, I think that is concerning, because there's questioning like science, and there's, you know, science is a theory, you know, it's a series of theories that are constantly trying to prove themselves. But if you don't, like, if you're not educated on like the science that exists, and you can't operate and know that there is some form of reality, like otherwise we're just living in a simulation, and there's already people who believe like crazy stuff like that. It's like, yeah, we could be living in a simulation, but like if we just all think that, like we can, like, I love having topics about like, what if life was a simulation? But if someone is just like, it's a simulation, you can't, Alex Jones, you can't possibly tell me that it's not a simulation. Like, if you start going that far, all of a sudden we're going to just start living in a crazy world where nothing progresses, and we can't even have a discussion because somebody thinks that like you're part of the deep state, or because you think this, like, oh, you're like, you're one of those people. So I think it's a real, like, there's a concern for me, where like misinformation will become a large problem in our society, possibly, because again, it only goes so far. It only, like, there's a point where like misinformed people can be dangerous sometimes, not all the time. But if there's a large number of people, I would say that concerns me, that possibility.
Yeah, well, it's not a possibility or a probability, it's an actuality, and I see your concern about it. Not everyone's going to agree on everything, and it's sounding like, well, we just have to agree on this shit even if it might not be true, and I'm not 100% convinced by that proposition.
I don't think we have to agree on everything, but I think there's some things where like, if someone's gonna come in and like dismantle NASA, I'd honestly tell that person like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're not a scientist. You don't know. Like, if someone like thinks that like they're gonna come to power and do something like that and say like, no, it's flat. And also we need to do start implementing policies like this because this is how I think the world is. And then all of a sudden they just destroy everything, destroy all science, all progress, and then we're like living in the Stone Age. I'd find that to be upsetting if someone was like, I don't really know how this like this breaker works, but I'm just gonna wire the thing this way, and then the power outage, and you're like, oh fuck, well, thanks, man. Like, it's really nice that like, could you maybe have like looked into it, like done the research? Like that's the concern. Like, you gotta like understand some things that like some things work because they work a certain way. There's unknowns, and you can question things all you want. You can point at a light and say, I question how that operates, and you're telling me it works like this. I question that. It's like, great. But if you're going to do work on the light, I'm probably going to listen to the person who installed the light, and I'm going to go forward thinking that if I figure out something along the way that somehow, you know, goes against what's already known, sure, like then we can like have a discussion. But if someone's just going to like not even do any research, isn't even going to like do any, isn't even going to form a hypothesis, test it, present it, and have a discussion with other people, if they're just going to point at the light and scream at it, I'm just gonna be like, I'm sorry, man. Like you really you just want to be like Galileo, but you know you can't, and you don't want to put in the research and look into it. And that's where I have a problem with some of the figures that come out that just like make up a conspiracy, right? It's like you gotta like have some evidence and like do some research. And when someone else presents like counterfacts to your conspiracy theory and you just deny those facts and just go, nope, not true, fake news, then it's like, okay, we're not even having a conversation anymore. Like there's not even, nothing's happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that is a huge problem. That's a severe problem when people are not educated and they think they're doing science when really they're just being stubborn and confrontational. Some of those ignorant, this is gonna stop in seconds, but some of those ignorant people, they're all right sometimes. So
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like again, not everyone is gonna do research, you know, not everyone is gonna have the time to like do stuff like that. So people like read, they listen to what other people say, right?
yeah.
But sometimes it's like there's the danger of misinformation when like someone like presents something and then all the people gather around that something. And then when someone's like, wait a second, here's all this evidence to counter that. You got to look at this. And then they're like, nope, I can't even hear you right now. All right, and we're back. Cut off a little bit there.
I don't know if you guys saw, but my hand, I knew it was happening, and so I put my hand up as it was cutting out to wave goodbye.
Oh, you did? Oh, damn, I didn't do that. Kind of just.
But I would say to my past self, you say goodbye, I say hello.
Like the Beatles song.
I don't know why you say goodbye.
I say hello.
Yeah. So, I mean, misinformation, pioneers of science, being rebellious. I mean, the spirit of America, as explained by this man in this book, which I do question a little bit because I do also see how stable things are and people who get into positions at universities that I think once they start getting grant money and they start to research what the people that have the money want. And so I think this is a little bit questionable, but he's really saying like, you know, American spirit is fuck you, England, we're taking over this shit and we start our own country and shit like that. So the foundation and the momentum of the American spirit is, you know, independence and freedom. And so if that's what we started from, and if that's even true, I don't really know. That's the story they tell us. If that's the truth, then some people have the freedom to do stupid shit and be uneducated, and that's just the truth of it, and that lends itself to incredible scientific discoveries. You know, the majority of all the Nobel prizes happen in the United States because they're doing groundbreaking research.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of funding there too, and even going back to what you said, sometimes I mean, the people who get what they want as far as like where research is going, yeah, it can be very like wealthy individuals, or it's something that stands to make a profit in the future. You know, just because of how our economic system works, it's like some diseases that are less common, they get less funding, unfortunately, because the whole idea is that like if you make something that, you know, is a big widespread problem, those companies will make more money. And it's kind of these like weird motivations. Or if you have just an individual who's like, you know, I have this problem, and I'm going to put a lot of money into it, even though there's other causes that affect maybe even more people in the population. That's a problem. Yeah.
I was just calling into question the spirit of science in the United States, and I think once the pioneering gesture has been made, then all of the greedy people just swarm to the area, and then it becomes overrun by what we're talking about, the greed and just profit. But at a fundamental level, I think the innovation happens from that place of pure excitement and novelty. I think it really starts with that, and then it gets overrun.
Yeah. No, see, it's difficult because there's like I think there's a breakdown in communication, perhaps, that can be like sourced even to a lot of the problems that we have at times. Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like when people are like discussing with one another what they think, like again, even going back to like somebody who's refusing to budge on like something that they think is true, and when they're presented like evidence to something, they're not going to look at it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and there's really not like I actually, this was talked about in a class of mine recently, how science is presented to the public, you know, when it comes out of that research stage. And sometimes what happens is they'll say that like science is like, here's this new thing that we found, and they won't say anything else. And people will take it as fact rather than understanding it's a theory, and it like develops over time. You know what I mean? And so there's this miscommunication with the public and the people who do the research, and the media that presents this research, right, as something that's like going to change your life. You have to implement this into your life right now. And it's like, maybe it's not developed fully yet. And there's been instances where like with like health, you know, even going back to what we were talking about, people give like health advice to people, and it's like, well, we don't really know everything yet. There's evidence that can be like presented, but like it's just like a theory based off of certain stuff that researchers have found.
But
More
it seems like you're
research.
flip-flopping back and forth between saying we need to trust the foundations of science, and then now you're saying it's just a theory. Look, we don't know everything. So what are you really saying then?
No, it's a mix of both. I think it's looking at like science as like, again, their theories, but also not like, you know, disagreeing just to disagree, you know, like not saying that like everything that all the evidence out there is false because I want to be like a rebel, or I want to be like those people in the past who ended up being like hailed for their discoveries. Or just being uninventive and just being like, you know, I'm just going to reverse like something like the flat earthers, you know, there's a line that like that you shouldn't cross, or else you're just going to go down a rabbit hole of misinformation, and you're just going to trust any source. Like there's such thing as trusting good sources. But we don't always have to take that as like, this is 100% true now, and that's all that we know, and we should immediately act on that. there's like a complex process. And I think part of the misinformation does stem even from, again, media can like take plenty of sources that maybe even some of them aren't trustworthy and put them out there. And there's this lack of communication that like a theory is a theory. Here's how much we know so far, and this is how you can apply it to your life. Because there's things that are like more well known and there's stuff that's less well known. A
Yeah.
positive could be like people saying that cigarettes were bad, they cause cancer. We have to do something about this, right? Scientific information led to that, led to us discovering that, despite, you know, tobacco companies trying to push the information completely to the sideline. There was a narrative that started to form.
And I wonder who funded that. Was it the alcohol companies, or was it someone else had to pay for that research, to take over those chemical, like, was it just, if it was just the alcohol companies, it's just a speculation. It's just another bad thing replacing this thing, right? So it's like,
I mean, I
all big business and just continuation of power. It's power changes between structures, but did anything really happen when people stopped smoking cigarettes, or did they just start dying in different ways?
No, I mean, cancer rates went down. That was a huge problem for a long time. They found that like cancer rates in hospitals and most smokers, ended up dying early because they look at their lungs and it was really bad. I mean, that's what I mean by like, I think like some science, it's like, it really depends on what we're talking about, because there's a danger once we go down the road of like, anti-science. Companies like doing that too, by the way. Sometimes you have companies that say, I don't like this science. It's proving that my company has a bad chemical in it. It's killing people. Let's try to spread the message that science is false and science can't prove anything that we're doing. And then all of a sudden you have this confliction and it's like, people are dying. We have to ban this product. But then if there's a wave of people that say like, wait a second, maybe it's good. Let's try to consume it more. It's like, wait a second. No, look at the evidence. We have to understand some things are true in reality. Some things are rooted in reality. And we can talk about, then the discussion can happen later. But like, if there's not immediate action in some circumstances of like emergency, that's another fear that I have. It's another problem, like with like there's got to be some rooting in reality where we say, okay, like there's some things that just are rooted in reality right now. And we can talk about things being like, different than what they seem, but like there's some things like, figuring that out is super important,
Yeah, well, okay. So ultimately, I think the world is round. And all I'm saying is it's important for people to question the status quo so we can continue to evolve our understanding of the world. I don't have a problem with people thinking the world is flat. And if they convince everybody else of that, then people are just stupid, and that sucks. I would like to go back to Galileo and talking about, being a pioneer. I'd like to just add in some extra information. About 50 years after he died, in the late 1600s, that's when they had the Salem witch trials. So just to give some context about the history of what was happening at that time, there's a scientific revolution going on in the Enlightenment, and at the same time they were killing people because they were killing people who said that they were witches and they had supernatural abilities. Okay.
Yeah.
So just some context. That's the world that they were living in. And he was saying, look, it's not the center of the universe or whatever. He's doing astronomy, which is amazing. I don't know how he was doing that all of that time ago. But just to say that you're saying we have to trust some things and we have to not trust other things. And then who gets to decide that? The authorities were drowning mostly women because they were, participating in occult activities.
Yeah. See, again, it can always go like two ways. Like, first of all, like I would never wish any harm for somebody who believed anything or was doing anything or was trying to prove anything. Like I think like generally like, you know, like conversation is just, that's communication, talking about things openly is the most important thing. Um, I think that like, again, it really does depend, because it's all about looking at the circumstance and the scenario, because circumstance and um what's happening can change everything when like talking about like um somebody trying to like prove something. Like for instance, if we talk about the instances with like tobacco companies, or even Roundup, you know, and things that like ended up being bad products that were harmful to people. In those circumstances, again, like listening to the science and looking at the hardcore evidence that like people are dying is extremely important, versus like somebody saying that like, you know, they have magical powers and is a witch, like, you know, like it's like, you know, and killing them for it. Like again, circumstance really does matter. And when someone says something that is against, you know, the current world that we live in, presses against what we know to be true right now, like it really is a careful balance. You know what I mean? It's like there's
Yeah.
things that are not harmful, and then there's things that are harmful. And the hardest thing, I think, is discerning those two things, because it's important to be open to new ideas, new things, and new discoveries. But it's also extremely important that we don't lose the scientific information that we already have in that process, because some things save lives. You know, I would not want to go back like 200 years and experience the medical system back then, where they just like cut off your leg because you're experiencing something like there's been like progress made in science, and super important that we don't destroy that, because we've come a long way, we worked hard to get here, but it's also important that we, you know, keep ourselves open to new ideas. um and science itself calls itself a series of theories, you know. um a lot of like scientists, their goal is to prove themselves wrong. At least the best scientists, not all of them do this, but this was also in the discussion of like how science operates with the media, and like how like sometimes something isn't proven yet it's presented to be already proven. That the best scientists are constantly trying to prove themselves wrong. Like that's the whole point of an experiment. It's not about proving yourself right. It's about trying to prove yourself wrong and seeing if you can get that wrong result. Um, because if you think that you're going to be right and you want to be right, then you're not going to lead a good experiment. You're just going to try to prove what your hypothesis was, which is not a good way to do an experiment.
Yeah, I mean, times have completely changed since the 1600s. It was the church who was in power and had the what controlled the foundations of the beliefs of the culture, and so and then there's the church, and then now there's like questioning the fundamental beliefs that they have is Galileo, and then later on witches saying there's these other magical powers outside of, you know, God or whatever, questioning, you know, that there is a single creator, or the only thing that can create miracles is God. And so that's the church, and then these questioning things, and now it's rotated, right? And now it's like, okay, you know, the foundations of our belief systems of the culture in terms of what we agree to politically, like what the general conversation that we have is, it's all around scientific discovery. That's what's if you are talking in a public forum, we're gonna communicate under the guise of, you know, we believe in scientific discovery, we can prove things and all this, right? So it's just another way of organizing individuals. It's a thing that we can agree on as a basis for our interactions, and it's just another way that's different than the way it was in the 1600s. And I couldn't even say that people now are trying to be like Galileo, because he was doing science in a world of religion. And now people are trying to do science in the world of science, and so I think it's a lot different. And I think that people think we know more than we do know, and ultimately we do need to test more things out and rely less upon thinking we know the majority of information. We know less than 1% of information. I mean, that's just a guarantee, and I don't know if we'll learn more than even 1% of information.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think a lot of scientists would agree with that too. Again, I think some of the best scientists, they say themselves, like, we don't know everything. It's all theories. Some are proven more than others to date. But we don't know everything, you know? I think science is in agreement with that. I think their only problem is when someone comes along and says, back to the Stone Age. It's like, hold on a second. Like, there's some stuff that, you know, is don't throw away all that scientific evidence. Like, you know, prove new things all you want, but like, it's evolving. It's like building a tower over time. Like, it's like someone just gets fed up with the whole thing and just like just tears the whole thing down. It's like, hold on a minute. We're building right now. We're constantly in the process of adding blocks, taking blocks away. If you destroy the whole thing, all of us are fucked. like it's gonna, like, society would not function. We need these blocks. Tearing the whole thing down isn't gonna help anybody. It'll only make things worse. And that's where I think the frustration is, where like people are like, well, you're just like angry. I like it's like you're angry at something, like, and you're trying to, like, you know, and someone, I don't know, there's like this lack of like communication, that we're all working on this tower together, you know? And there is problems with some people having more power over that structure than others. And I think that's a huge important conversation to have. Like, all of us are contributing to this, and we all should be. But, you know, again, the important thing is just we shouldn't destroy the whole tower just because you know, there's problems with who has access to it too, you know?
Yeah, I'm not trying to destroy anything, but I'm trying to be honest about what's happening. And
I didn't mean you, by the way. I
yeah,
wasn't meaning you. I was meaning like the people who are like, you know, staunch, like flat earthers, like anti-vax. Like, there's this wave of anti-science that wants to like completely push the tower down. And
I don't know what those people are trying to do. I think they might push the tower down, but I don't know if that's their intent. I don't really know what these people are trying to do. I think a lot of them are trying to they know that they don't know everything, and they know that people won't tell them all the information that's important for their survival on this planet, and what will allow them to thrive. They must move beyond the mainstream narrative of information that they're getting. And some people don't have discernment, and they go really far into one of these things that may or may not be true, but can definitely be shown to not be useful in today's social paradigm. But yeah, they know for sure they're not getting all the right information, so they got to guess on some shit, and some of it they're wrong.
yeah, again, there's always like there's a line that can be crossed where things get dangerous. Like, it's all like context. Like, I think, again, like it's hard because you like we can look at a given situation and something cannot be harmful. Then you look at another situation, and that thing can become progressively more harmful or dangerous. Because misinformation is a really tricky animal. You know, it's a really tricky thing where um uh it really depends, because someone else perceives as misinformation can actually be fact, and then everyone is throwing around this word and pointing at one another, screaming. But I do think, like, the most important thing is that there's some we cannot forget what we already know. And if we work in that frame set and we don't tear the whole tower down and go back to the Stone Age and, burn our houses down, turn off the lights, no power, and just go and say, forget it, all technology, forget it. We're just going to go back and let's try it again.
Well, who's even really
I
saying
think
that, dude? Who's really even saying let's turn
Well-
off the technology and burn all of our buildings?
It's
Like,
the implicit, not wanting to listen to people who are already, working on the lights, who are already, keeping us going, and not willing to work with that. And this hidden idea behind it of we need to go back. And that is even something that even is kind of like a political narrative. Sometimes we need to go back. We need to go back. We need to go back. It's like, hold on. We gotta be working with what we have, because going back, the further you go back, the more even brutal it gets in many circumstances. I think it's really concerning when I hear people say we need to go back, or they say all this needs to be completely we need to start over here, and we need to start doing new science. It's we should work with the tower that we have. But I do
yeah, but
think
dude, I don't know who's really even saying that. I think you're just making this up, that people are saying let's tear all this shit down. I think people are ignorant, and they're not educated, and they know that they're lacking information, and then they make a guess. And you know what? Most of the time, vaccines help people, and sometimes people get injured by them. And so, I mean, the people then take that way too far and say it's always bad. But look, man, I mean, we have to be honest about this. We have to be honest about what's happening. And I don't really hear anybody saying let's totally go back in time to the Stone Age. I really don't hear that.
Well, I'm more so talking about in maybe a political sense. So maybe it's more so people who are saying, and those people are sometimes aligned. It's there's those connections that branch, unfortunately, with the anti-science narrative. But another thing is saying that science that has been proven, the rejection of that is basically saying, okay, I want to rip out all these blocks because I find them inconvenient, throw them to the side. Well, what's the alternative to that? There is none. Global warming, doesn't exist. Nope. Throw out the blocks. It's well, the research has been done for years. And then someone goes, nope, I'm throwing my hands up in the air and I cannot hear you anymore. And that's the problem.
But that's
And
not
it's
the Stone Age, dude. That's not
well,
this. We're not.
it's not the
turning off
Stone
light.
Age, but the implication is you could do that with anything. Is throwing out previous research and saying, I want to throw out everything because I find it inconvenient. It's eventually you've torn down the whole entire structure because so many things were inconvenient. Now, I'm not saying there's a lot of people who would want to do that, because I don't think that's true. Of course not. People don't want to throw away all the conveniences that we currently have, but inconveniences sometimes are important to note. And throwing them out because they're inconvenient is dangerous, because at that rate we're all just
But you're
throwing out
labeling it as them doing that because it's inconvenient. That's
Well,
you
there's some
labeling it.
things
That's not
that
what they're
people-
saying.
Well, many people, like global warming deniers, it's an inconvenient information for them, and
You're labeling it that, though.
well, that's exactly well. If you
They
listen to
don't
what
say
they
that.
say too,
They don't
sometimes
say that it's
they-
inconvenient.
Well, no,
They
because
say
they
they
don't
don't
want to
believe it.
believe it. They'll have to change their habits, and we have to face a very challenging truth then, if that is the truth. So instead of presenting an alternative, they say no, that can't be true. And that's a key problem when Florida will be underwater in not very much time. It's a scary reality. But then someone sees their house get washed away, and they wonder, why is this getting worse? And it's well, don't throw away the inconvenient truth. You can try to work, you can try to prove against it, but to say just throw it out because I don't like that, it's that's the problem with the misinformation. Try it, you can press against it, anyone can press against it all they want, but as long as it's not throwing out half of the thing and just pushing it out of the way.
Yeah, well, okay, but the half of the thing has so many holes in it. Okay. And so we can agree on that. We can take small steps, and that's fine. We don't have to do giant leaps. But let's just be honest about where we really are. And there are a bunch of holes in this global warming thing, and just more generally in science and what we hold to be hard fact and what people get into giant disagreements about. In all things, all evidence is circumstantial and it is limited. And so to say that humans are the only cause for global warming, or saying that there's something we can do about global warming, or if they're saying something that all of this stuff, this is a novel experience of humanity. Okay. All this stuff that is happening, we're trying to create meaning on this because that's what our brains do. It creates stories. So a lot of people, they hear stuff about global warming and they're already feeling bad about the circumstances of the world. And so all they're doing is, okay, let me grasp onto this. The world is fucked. So we might as well also, this is just going to be our belief based on this. The world is fucked because global warming and shit. And we have to do these things to stop it. We don't really know what we need to do to stop it. We don't really know what we've done to contribute to it. We don't know the larger climate swings of, we really don't know the context of, we're just dealing with such a limited amount of information. Based on what we have, it's really important for us to say, okay, we need to cut down on all this stuff. But are we really doing that?
Well, I think it really is.
Are we really doing what we're supposed to be doing? Because if we aren't, then that's not even a foundational block of science, dude. It's just some shit like, oh fuck, we're fucked. We should have done this. It's not even a foundational piece.
Well, that's why people need to, if people want to, like, you know, prove the information that's already available wrong, I mean, they can go ahead, but like, you can't ignore the information that's already presented, like the trends of like industrialization with ocean levels rising, with the trapping of carbon monoxide in the atmosphere that they can measure, and also not to mention again the rising heat. And you look at the trends, they can track it back a long ways now, and you look at the trend and it just starts going up. But then people use the information of like, it does this, but it just slowly goes up. So you can see the natural trends, but it slowly is doing this.
Okay, but
we'll zoom in and we'll try to say like, oh, look, it bounces back. But if you look at the whole entire graph, it's steadily going up.
Okay,
and that starts with industrialization. So that information is present to us. People can try to prove it wrong if they want to, but right now we know that is a cause. So what else are we going to do except for try to fix it with what we know?
But we're not doing that. So you're saying, and we got 10 minutes here. What we're saying here is science, the political atmosphere of the United States and the globe, the foundational information that's within the society that we live in, the core information is there's a very small amount of information that is every person believes. Okay, we can say that we are here, whether we're existence, we're humans, you know, we give birth to other humans, and that we want to have some sort of code to engage with other people. Global warming is not a part of this foundational thing. There's scientific evidence, which you just gave for it. But when you're saying people are trying to knock out the foundation of science, the global warming is not within the core belief of science.
Well, because science is an ever expanding thing. But if we look only at the core information, we're missing the whole wider picture. And if we don't try to fix problems that have been presented to us through science and that there's a lot of data on right now, that's a danger. It's like people, if they want to, come up with new stuff. I'm not saying don't do that. That's what science is based on. It's about putting forward a theory, testing it, you know, trying to test other theories against your theory. That's fine. That's great. That's good. And we should have that conversation going forward. However, right now, we know a certain amount of evidence and we got to try to fix it. Because if we do nothing because we don't know, that's scary. That's
but all I'm saying is that what you're advocating for is taking that evidence and making it a core part of our shared experience. And all I'm saying is it's not in there. It's not in the core shared experience. And so so then we're not acting upon it. And so if we're not acting upon it, then it is not a shared common belief. And if it's not a shared common belief, then it really is somebody who is pioneering thought. It's really a new idea. It's not an accepted idea.
I mean, again, it's
Accepted
it's a
ideas. We have
careful.
5 senses, these are our sense organs. Like the people who can't refute that. But this other stuff is like, okay, really show me it, prove it.
Okay, well, at the same time, again, I'd like to see us avoid a crisis too. It's like as long as we should keep trying to fight it. That's all I'm saying. Is like we may not know all the information, but if we stop trying, that's when things can really go wrong. It's like we like tracking asteroids. Seeing where they are in the universe and if they're going to hit Earth. Like we can do a certain amount to prevent something bad from happening. And just because the missile might miss the asteroid, or maybe that's actually the worst way to do it. Maybe there's a better way. Maybe we can actually move it with the spacecraft and push it. There's many ideas that have been thrown out there. This is all like discussion in the scientific world. But if we say, well, it's not even core in science. It's like, it's not core. It doesn't have to be. It's not even a shared common worry or belief, maybe perhaps with anybody. But if we can, like, we got to try because like we see a trend, we know it's doing something. It's just like cigarettes, rather than saying cigarettes, I don't know. A lot of people like smoking. I really find this enjoyable. It's like cancer rates are linked to these people dying. We've dissected the bodies. The lungs are black. This is not a good thing. Like that, it was never a core thing. We never had tobacco when we were, in the base of evolution, but we know that there's like a trend, and it's like you can challenge that science, like anybody can. But right now we have to make sure that we curb the usage of cigarettes because the cancer rates are on the increase among smokers.
Well, now it
So
has
it's
become core. It has become core, Jesse, because that's widely spread. If you talk to anybody who smokes cigarettes or doesn't smoke cigarettes, they know that it's harming their body.
Yeah, and I think that has happened, like, again, through evidence being collected, and certain things move more towards the core, but we're at a stage where certain theories, there's a lot of evidence and nobody can really prove any evidence that disproves it. And so right now we have to focus on that evidence and try to curb a disaster happening, because we only have so much time when it comes to like curbing a a huge
But we don't know.
problem.
But we don't know, dude, because we know that if everything else stays the same, then this problem will continue to progress in the way that we predict. Okay, that's all we know. But we don't know about technological innovation, and we don't know ways that we will develop new scientific ideas to that would be much more effective than the current science that we have. It's not like we just continue to have the same human experience over and over and over and over again. Things change, new technology evolves, we get new evidence, and there might be some like chemical process that we devise, or some way, something to shoot up into the atmosphere to change, like to change whatever is causing this warming. Like there's technology that we can develop to affect the globe and individuals at a large scale. And so to say that we are doomed at a certain date and we're completely fucked that's just wrong.
Well, I would say
Inaccurate.
that there's already conversations like that happening. I mean, with like shooting salt into the atmosphere, there's plenty of like things that people have discussed. The real question and frightening thing is, what if we don't get there fast enough and we didn't try? That's the problem, is if we don't try, we're setting ourselves up for failure if we don't reach that technological threshold in time before people start suffering. Already people are seeing famines across the globe. People's homes are flooding. I think we have to try.
Yeah.
There's no way we can't try. And I'd rather try on information that we have than not try at all. That's my main threshold. We can learn more stuff. We can curb our behavior, change the way that we're trying, use different technology as we progress. I'm in complete agreement with that, but we gotta try right now. Despite what anyone else thinks, as long as we are trying to fix the world's problems, that's the most important thing. And right now we're headed on a certain trajectory. If people want to do research, try to prove stuff wrong that we already know, perfect. Feed us that information on the way as we're going. There's plenty of people who are looking into different solutions and stuff like that, but we all have to be in this together on that train, headed in the direction of progress, fixing the problem based off of what we know, and keep learning and
Yeah.
try as we learn. Because if we wait until like we need to wait until we learn the max amount of information, we're not actively trying to fix the problem. It's like the human experience. It's like we're going to fight together to overcome this problem. Even with, we may not know everything, but we're going to try. We're going to at least get there. You know, we are going to shoot for the stars and try to do the best that we can, you know, right now.
Yes. Yes, we need to do what we can based on the information we have. And additionally, we don't need somebody else to do something differently in order to make our vision of the world come true. If the people who are compelled by the evidence that they've seen, they need to do what they can based on the information they have. But we don't need everybody to have the same belief. We need people the most effective people who have the information that they have, they need to do what they're going to do with that information. And if that means coming up with like, there's enough people fired up about this that we don't need to try to convince other people to act differently or to change their beliefs. That's just wasted energy. Why aren't we just focusing all of our energy on what we want to happen in the world?
I think that
We just have about 30 seconds.
Oh, 30 seconds. Oh, damn. I guess maybe we got to sign off here. Like when it gets more political, that's when like I think like how the government operates and how they're in control of like what happens with policy, that can get a little bit more complex, because if some of them
build a
aren't,
stronger case, and it can be undeniable.
yeah, it's the trying right now thing that is the is the problem. But I guess we're running out of time, so I don't want to extend it into the conversation and have it cut off. So I guess we'll do an outro out.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh, is it ended now?
No, it will at any second though.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching.